Ready? Ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the January 7th, 2025 meeting of the Smithfield Town Council to order. If you would please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very special evening for a number of folks here this evening. We have democracy basically in action. We have new council members to be sworn in this afternoon, and we're looking forward to that. So without further ado, I'd like to ask our clerk of the circuit court, the Honorable Laura Smith, to come forward, please, and she will be swearing in. And when your name is called, if you would please report to the podium and take your oath. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Michael Smith. I'm good. How are you? I'm going to get you to raise your right hand, and you're going to repeat after me.
Yes, ma'am.
I, Michael G. Smith,
I, Michael G. Smith,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge all duties incumbent upon me
discharge all duties incumbent upon me
as a member of Smithfield Town Council
Smithfield, as a member of Smithfield Town Council
for a term beginning January 1st, 2025,
for a term beginning January
1st,
1st,
2025, according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Mary Ellen Biebermeyer. All right, raise your right hand for me and repeat after me. I, Mary Ellen Biebermeyer,
I, Mary Ellen Biebermeyer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge all duties incumbent upon me
discharge all duties incumbent upon me
as a member of Smithfield Town Council
as a member of Smithfield Town Council
for a term beginning January 1st, 2025,
for a term beginning January 1st, 2025,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. All right, Darren Cutler. Okay. Raise your right hand. You're going to repeat after me. I, Darren W. Cutler,
I, Darren W. Cutler,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge all duties incumbent upon me
discharge all duties incumbent upon me
as a member of Smithfield Town Council
as a member of Smithfield Town Council
for a term beginning January 1st, 2025,
for a term beginning January 1st, 2025,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. All set.
Madam Clerk, thank you for coming out tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Next item we have on the agenda is item number item B, and that's the election of mayor. At this time, I will turn the floor over to our town attorney, Mr. Bill Riddick. Mr. Riddick.
Members of council, you have a newly constituted town council, and the first order of business is the election of a new mayor. The floor is open for nominations for mayor.
Mr. Riddick, I'd like to take this opportunity to nominate Councilman Mike Smith.
Mike Smith has been nominated. Are there any seconds to the nomination?
Second.
He's been properly nominated and seconded. Are there any other nominations for mayor?
I move the nominations be closed.
The nominations are now closed. All those in favor of the election of Mike Smith as mayor of the town of Smithfield, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Smith, you've been elected mayor of the town council. Congratulations.
The gavel is yours, Mr. Mayor.
One more thing,
Vice
Mr. Mayor, we need to elect a vice mayor. The floor is open for nominations for the office of vice mayor.
Mr. Riddick, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Bill Harris as our new vice mayor. Bill's no stranger to this town or in the proceedings of our council and planning commissions. I'm looking forward to his vision and experience. Bill was previously recommended to be appointed to this council, which did not pass, and now the voters have spoken by electing him to this council, and I support him as well. Fully endorse him as our newest vice mayor.
Second.
Mr. Harris has been nominated and seconded. Are there any other nominations for vice mayor? Hearing none, the floor is closed as to nominations. All those in favor of the election of Bill Harris as vice mayor of the town council for the town of Smithfield say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Mr. Harris, you've been elected as the vice mayor of the town council for the town of Smithfield.
As I said, Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Before we go into closed session, I want to thank everyone that's come out tonight, and it's not just tonight that you came out. It's you've come out many nights, but tonight has been a special time for all of us, and a lot of changes have been made, and with council and members, and I know how hard people worked for the group that endorsed us, CRL group, and my hat's off to them. We couldn't have done that without them. It was the first time that I've ever seen anything executed like that in the town of Smithfield. It brought the citizens together, just as you've come out tonight to be together with us, and it shows that we headed a new direction for town involvement and citizen involvement, and we're looking forward to working with all of you. I'm looking forward to it, and I can't thank you enough. Thanks so much. At this time, we have a closed session.
Mr. Mayor and
yes.
members of council, we need a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel and briefing by staff as to actual or probable litigation pursuant to section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This shouldn't take very long.
Every time they sit down, we were out there. At this time, I'd like to come out of closed session.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, we need a motion that during the closed session, there was only a consultation with legal counsel and briefing by staff as to actual or probable litigation pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
So moved.
Mr. Brooks, need a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Cutler,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Yes.
Councilwoman Butler,
Yes.
Councilwoman Beavermeyer,
Yes.
Councilman Brooks,
Yes.
Councilman Bowman,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
At this time, we have the informational section from the manager's report.
Yes, sir. Included in your packet was the activity report for the previous month. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Michael tonight? If not, we don't have any presentations, I've been told. Then we have comments from the public. First on the list is Jesse Lanier.
Good evening. Jessie Lanier, 101 Prestwick. I'm president of the Board of Directors of the Schoolhouse Museum, and if you will allow me, I'd like for the board members who are here to just raise their hands. Okay. Thank you. The Schoolhouse Museum Board of Directors would like to take this opportunity to thank the former town council for the support they have given the museum. My hope is that you, the new council, and the museum will have an excellent working relationship as well. Some of you may not be aware of the museum programs, so allow me to share a few facts with you. First, the town of Smithfield owns the building and its grounds, and the town has been very cooperative in maintaining both. The work of the Schoolhouse Museum extends beyond its mission, which is to preserve, interpret the history of African American education in Alawite County, the first half of the 20th century. And in order to continue the legacy of Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald, the museum works with other entities in the county to educate our community. In collaboration with the Alawite County Museum and Main Street Baptist Church, last year we brought over 80 junior ROTC cadets from Smithfield High School and Surrey County High Schools to have lunch with 5 retired generals in our Lunch and Learn series. We worked with the Olive County NAACP to organize a very successful Juneteenth. The Smithfield Times and the Schoolhouse Museum together annually sponsor a Black History Essay Contest. We continue to work with Historic Smithfield on worthy projects. We restarted the after-school tutorial program at Main Street Baptist Church, which had been inactive since COVID. We collaborated with Centera to bring its 3D mobile mammogram van to Smithfield. We instituted enrichment classes to help students needing or wanting assistance in geography, reading comprehension, math, and cursive writing. A Dominion Energy grant allowed us to provide 13 different classes to our adult community in areas such as personal finance, first aid, where students receive 2-year certifications, being energy efficient, don't be scammed, basic home maintenance, CPR, basic parliamentary procedure, resume writing, and discovering your roots, where DNA ancestry kits were distributed. In addition, the museum offers a $1,000 annual scholarship to a worthy African American student. And these are just a few examples of what the museum does and has done. This year, we have invited area high school cadets to a lunch with Hampton University's ROTC and Naval ROTC cadets. And we are bringing the Tuskegee Airmen's Rise Above exhibit to Smithfield in June. In other words, we are more than just a museum. We teach, we inspire, we introduce, and we enrich. Our community, area communities, and visitors all benefit from our museum programs. So we thank you for what you've done. We are hoping to have continued cooperation with the new board, and I'd like to welcome you to the Smithfield Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lanier. Really appreciate all the work you do out there. Your husband's very complimentary of you before I came in here tonight, saying how much a better speaker you were than him, but he didn't want to say that to you, but I'll say it to you. The work you do there is invaluable, and it really keeps the education, as your husband said, keeps the education out in front of the children that need to hear it, and also the community members that really don't think about it much, but that helps brings a lot of things to light about the history of this small town, and you've made a big difference in that. And I certainly appreciate that. The next on the list is Lee Abbott. Lee Abbott, Lamar? Lehman, I'm sorry.
So congratulations to everybody who was just sworn in tonight. Sure you're overloaded with committee reports already. I just wanted to comment on, I know during the candidate forum, one of the topics that came up was the question if the approvals that were on file, for lack of a better phrase, and I forget the exact phrasing of the question, but it was about the Grange. And if the incoming council members would seek to either repeal or withdraw that. There have been comments from Mr. Luter that he is only interested in moving forward if there's support of council. I know it's a very contentious project. I live downtown. I live at the start of the speedway that Mary Ellen is towards the end of. The brutal truth is the Gray Street traffic is gonna really stink, I'll go with, whether the Grange is there or not. The problem is the traffic, not necessarily the Grange. So I really would ask council to see what can be done about that larger problem, whatever development goes in there. There's a lot of pushback about high density housing going in there. We did have lower density housing on the table a couple of years ago, and that was shot down for that land. All right, so the reality is currently in Smithfield, over 30% of the population is 25 and under. We do everything we can for the kids in this town. We take pride in how active they are in the town, the scout troops, the bands. We love watching them at parades. We worry that their schools are too crowded. And then they get to the end of high school, maybe they're ready for the workforce because of the really amazing programs we now have in our school district. Maybe they go to the service, maybe they go to college. Where are they going to live? They can't come back to the town if there isn't affordable and accessible housing in the town, and that's going to come with some higher density. Any of myself and any of you who are up here who live downtown, we're considered high density. That's the reality, all right? 2 of you are fortunate enough to live in the unicorn of real estate that is a downtown district townhouse with low maintenance, all right, and yet walkability. And yet we wonder why people would pay handsomely to want to live there, be it an apartment as a rental or as an entry-level home in one of the Muse houses that were discussed. I really ask you to consider the project in total for the current population and who would be moving into some of these properties in our town, who maybe they don't have parents who can give them a house, they don't have, or they have siblings, so they would play rock, paper, scissors over it. I don't know. But that is a concern, and this continuing logic flaw that comes up, that it's just this influx of people that would be coming into all of these homes and yet not acknowledging that we actually have a population and housing issue currently in our town, I think is something we really need to address. The other thing that's very concerning that I keep hearing, there were comments that were made during the candidate forum, but just in general, even in previous council meetings, when Mr. Luter talked about foods supporting the housing or needing housing for some of their employees, the people they wanted to bring in, there seems to be this attitude that, and I don't know if it's because Mr. Luter IV and different issues have all gotten conflated with Smithfield Foods over time, but the reality is this is a major employer in our town. With Keurig leaving, it is really a key employer in our county. And I think they do have a right, maybe not to insist upon a certain vote, but to have a fairly large say in some of the discussion for everything they contribute to our town. I know that transparency is a word that has repeatedly come up. Thank you. Repeatedly come up during the campaigns. So if you're truly going to be transparent with the town and you're going to add friction to any relationship with foods, are they going to leave? Maybe not. Could we make it hard for them to stay? 100%. I doubt the people of Norfolk ever thought Norfolk Southern would leave. All right? And yet these things do happen. These decisions will be made. And I think that it's a time to work with them. From a transparency standpoint, if you choose to go with a decision that does not support what they need for growth, then please know they have other options, and transparently discuss with the citizens how you will replace things like 200,000 servings of food from 50,000 pounds of donated food to the food banks. The supports to the scout troops, to the bands, to Western Tidewater, to the veterans programs, to our own food
Your time
bank.
has expired.
Thank you. All of that comes from foods. And I think we really owe it to the town as a collective to consider all of those things when we're thinking about how we treat our corporate neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lehman. No one else has signed up at this time. Does anybody like to speak without having to sign up? If not, we'll move along to the action section. We have public hearing, I'm sorry, we'll move to the consent agendas. C1, subdivision agreement. Councilwoman Butler?
Council comments.
Council comments, I'm sorry. Do we have any council comments?
Actually,
After you.
okay. Mr. Mayor, first of all, I want to congratulate Mayor Smith, Vice Mayor Harris. Also want to thank former Mayor Bowman and Vice Mayor Butler. Thank you for your service to the town. Appreciate all that you've done for Smithfield. I look forward to working with everyone on the council. I know we have a lot on our plate over the next couple years, but I think we have a great team to accomplish a lot of good things for Smithfield. So that being said, I want to make sure that the citizens of Smithfield are our highest priority. I've met and talked with many citizens over the last few months, and I promised more citizen involvement and more community outreach. So I know that not everyone, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight to the council meetings, but I know not everybody can attend the meetings. So I want to reach out to all citizens around town by continuing the meet and greets that we've done in the past, Q&A sessions, whether it's community groups, church, civic groups, neighborhood meetings, homeowner meetings. We can meet at the library, whatever. A variety of times, places, daytimes work better for some people, nighttime work good for other people. I understand that not all council members can attend every time, but I want the citizens of Smithfield to know that we're interested in your feedback and we want to hear your concerns. And I'll be sure to work out any of the details on meetings with Mr. Stallings, Mrs. King. I look forward to meeting with as many citizens as possible in the coming months and years. And I thank you all for your support, and I'm ready to serve the people of Smithfield.
Thank you, Ms. Beavermeyer. Darren?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And congratulations to you and Mr. Harris. And I'd like to thank Mr. Bowman and Ms. Butler, as well as the previous serving council members that have vacated their seats for a job well done for the town of Smithfield. Echoing some of what Ms. Biebermeyer said, we met with a lot of citizens, whether it was at the polls or at their homes and throughout various meeting places throughout the town. And it's wonderful to see such turnout tonight, and I appreciate the comments that we've already received thus far, and look forward to many more from the town, because as we seek guidance from you as we make decisions for the town. So I would encourage you to continue to come out to the town meetings, as well as taking advantage of other opportunities, as Ms. Biebermeyer discussed, so we can really receive the guidance from the constituents on how we work on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell.
Mayor Smith, I'd like to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, first of all, I want to officially congratulate Mary Ellen and Darren. Congratulations, and I look forward to serving alongside you. And Bill, I know I've congratulated you at our last meeting officially, but I want to congratulate you again in the position of Vice Mayor. And Mike. Last but not least,
Thank you.
I want to congratulate you as well as being mayor of the town of Smithfield. And I look forward to you. You're the most seasoned town council person that we have now. And I don't mean that age-wise. I mean that experience. I didn't realize it was your 4th term that you were running for. I thought it was your 3rd term. So I'm sure that, you know, with your experience that you can share a lot with us. But I also want to thank the previous council for the honor of allowing me to serve as vice mayor for the town of Smithfield these past 2 years. And it's been a privilege to work alongside council staff as well as the community, focusing on moving Smithfield forward. I look forward to serving my last 2 years on town council. And I hope together we can build a stronger and more vibrant and inclusive community for all. And I want to thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Any other comments for council? If not, we'll move to the consent agendas. And we have C1 as a subdivision agreement. Mrs. Butler?
Yes. I'd like to recommend a motion to approve the subdivision agreement for Mallory Point Phase A, Section 2, which deals with the water and sewer, which will be in compliance with the design work for the town of Smithfield.
Thank you. C2, we have invoices over $20,000. Since we don't have a department head of that for financing right now, I'll run that by you. That's Athens Building Group for Windsor Castle Park Boardwalk Restoration Project, $56,965.02. And do we have what's the will of council for consent agendas?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda items C1 and C2, as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Councilman Cutler,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Yes.
Councilwoman Butler,
Yes.
Mayor Smith,
Aye.
Councilwoman Biebermeyer,
Yes.
Councilman Brooks,
Yes.
Councilman Bowman.
Yes.
Moving right along to the action section, we have a public hearing and a special use permit. Ms. Tammy Clary, can you present that for us, please?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. The applicant is seeking a special use permit. This is for a waiver of parking and loading in order to seek relief from the parking and loading requirements of Article 8. They do require 1 space per 200 square feet of gross floor area. With the approved approximately 30 by 32 addition, the applicant would be required to have a minimum of 36 parking spaces, and the applicant currently has 27 existing spaces. At the November Planning Commission meeting, this was favorably recommended to Town Council. Staff do recommend that approval is contingent on the applicant obtaining a zoning permit and fee payment. To elaborate, since we do not have a representative from Planning Commission, it was a unanimous favorable recommendation. There was also a discussion that the applicant does have a parking agreement with the CVS, where staff is allowed to utilize the rear spaces. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Clary? If not, I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone like to comment on this? Anyone like to come forward? If not, I'll close the public hearing. What's the will of council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I am a client of that specific practice, and I go in there from time to time, and between there and CVS and observing, even as a former chief of police, the traffic that goes through there. I've never seen it actually to cause a conflict as far as traffic flow is concerned or safety was concerned or anything such as that. So with that, I would move that we approve the request.
Do we have a motion to approve? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussions? Call for the vote, please.
Councilman Brooks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beebermeyer?
Yes.
Councilman Cutler?
Aye.
Councilwoman Butler?
Yes.
Councilman Bowman?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
The second public hearing is entrance corridor overlay, and Tammy, once again, we'd like to hear from you on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Staff do recommend approval of both guidelines contingent on the remaining staff comments to be addressed. We do have our consultant here that has a brief presentation for both of the documents. Thank you.
Is my short frame blocking anybody from seeing this? Because I've got a screen in front of me. If no issues, I'm going to stay here then.
All right, good evening, Town Council. My name is Caleb Gasparic. I'm a historian and historic preservation planner with Chronicle Heritage. We are a consulting firm that specializes in cultural resources that was hired by the town of Smithfield to update the Historic District Design Guidelines, which cover the Smithfield Historic District. Chronicle Heritage, as I said, is a cultural resource management company with offices throughout the country and overseas. We help clients preserve important historical resources from archaeological sites to the built environment, such as the Smithfield Historic District. I've worked on design guidelines and similar planning documents for several municipalities, including Westport, Connecticut, Danville, Virginia, Prattville, Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, and Boulder, Colorado. And as I said, I'm the author of the design guidelines. So design guidelines such as these apply to historic districts. Historic districts are not defined by individual buildings and sites. They are defined by the interaction between individual buildings and the landscape, helping to create a sense of place and identity. That sense of place comes from a historic district, is maintained by avoiding alterations that are out of character or which may disrupt the overall feeling of the district. So Article 3M of the Smithfield zoning ordinance gives the town the power and responsibility to establish design guidelines. It also creates the review board that reviews and approves work based on those guidelines. Design guidelines such as these provide historic district residents, property owners, contractors, architects, members of the board, and town staff an overview of the architectural design principles and guidelines for ensuring compatibility between new development in the existing character of the historic districts. So design guidelines cover everything from existing building and sites to new constructions and demolitions and building moves within the district. So in Smithfield, there is both a national and local historic district. National historic districts are largely honorary designations. Local historic districts, such as the Smithfield Historic District, for which these guidelines apply to, have local regulations attached to them, such as Article 3M of the zoning ordinance and these design guidelines themselves. Properties within the historic district are subject to the underlying zoning regulations. Any property owner wishing to make exterior alterations to buildings and sites within the historic district must receive a certificate of appropriateness from the review board. So the current design guidelines date to 2006 and cover these topics here: the purpose and background for the design guidelines, the different styles in Smithfield, how to use the document, and then the bulk of the document, which is the guidelines for rehabilitation, new construction, as well as guidelines for streetscape alterations and demolitions. So why might the community want to update their design guidelines? Over time, the things that we value and our aesthetic preferences change. Building codes and new regulations might also impact how design guidelines are implemented. Town staff and your review boards might also find that the existing guidelines are not able to adequately address the needs of the community. Guidelines such as these are typically updated every 10 to 15 years as funding allows. Grant funding is commonly made available for design guideline updates such as these. So what is new in the new 2025 Historic District Design Guidelines? So the next few slides provide some examples of the changes that we made with the 2025 Design Guidelines. The new guidelines contain much of the same information, but are with up-to-date information reflecting current best practices in the field. They also have a new look and document organization. There are also new graphics and design to aid readers. And the new guidelines are more interactive. So while these guidelines can be printed, they include additional features that are accessible online. So for example, by clicking on different sections in the table of contents, it'll take you directly to that part of the document. There are also numerous preservation briefs, which are publications by the National Park Service that provide in-depth information on the best practices for preserving, rehabilitating, and restoring historic buildings. So clicking on any of those preservation briefs within the document will take you directly to the National Park publications. So this slide demonstrates the overall formatting of the new guidelines. So the old guidelines are on the left and the new design guidelines are on the right. Whereas the old guidelines are in a single page spread, the new guidelines are a double page spread meant to be read like a book. This slide here shows the same subject material from 2006 on the left and the new updated design guidelines on the right. This slide demonstrates some of the stylistic changes that have occurred from the 2006 guidelines to the current guidelines. This slide shows some of the new renderings that are found in the 2025 guidelines. Some additional renderings here showing applicants' best practices and things to avoid when designing new buildings in the district. And then this slide here kind of demonstrates the general organization of the document. So for each aspect of the building or site that is being modified, the guidelines provide a series of best practices as well as steps applicants and contractors will want to avoid. There are also some additional sections that were not found in the 2006 guidelines, such as best practices for installing solar panels on historic buildings, the most up-to-date practices for treating and restoring historic materials, and additional guidance for replacing historic materials with appropriate new synthetic counterparts. That concludes my presentation on the new design guidelines, and I'm open to any questions or comments that y'all may have.
Anyone have any questions? I know it's a lot to absorb.
I have a question. I'm not sure if you or Tammy can answer this, but how many comments are left to be resolved?
There's just a few minor edits and tweaks that we want kind of some photos swapped out with better lighting. just really minor. One of them was just updating with the finalized town council and planning commission liaison, but just minor things. They were included in the link. There, you have the original submitted historic district and then the one that has the staff comments on it.
Any other questions? Appreciate it. I'd like to open the public hearing at this time. Anyone from the public have any comments on this? Like I said, this is a lot to absorb, and since we haven't finished everything on it, we're open to your comments. Since we have no comments, I'll close the public hearing. What's the will of council on this?
Mr. Mayor, I have no doubt the presentation was fantastic, and the work that's been done is excellent. The interactive nature of the document is wonderful. However, I would move the table for at least 30 days so that we can have some additional time to review. It is quite a lot to chew, as you mentioned, and that would also allow the staff to resolve their comments, and we could review it and approve it in full, completed fashion, and have some time for us new members to, have ample time to review it.
We have a motion to delay or not approve, so to speak. We have a second.
Here's the
Yes,
question.
yes,
Was
go
that a
ahead.
table for 30 days,
Yes.
next council meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Thank you. I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, and we have a second. Can you call for the vote, please?
Councilwoman Butler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Biebermeyer?
Yes.
Councilman Brooks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Yes.
Councilman Cutler?
Yes.
Councilman Bowman?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. Number 3. You have any questions? One more thing? Smithfield entrance corridor, okay. I'm sorry.
Caleb Gasparic again. So just a sort of a little prelude to this presentation. So this part of the guidelines were created by our subconsultant, Meredith Johnson with Johnson Planning and Preservation. She couldn't be here tonight. I told her I would go over the slides. This isn't my area of expertise, I will say in advance, but I know enough to hopefully get through these slides. And if there's any really jarring questions for her, I have her on speed dial, so I'll just go ahead and get started. So the Smithfield Entrance Corridor Overlay Design Guidelines, similar to the Historic District, these design guidelines are an update to the 2006 guidelines. In Meredith's presentation, I'm going to talk about her firm, where are the Smithfield entrance corridors, the purpose of the overlay and the guidelines, and the changes in the updated guidelines. So Johnson Planning and Preservation. Meredith Johnson is a city planner and historic preservationist who holds a bachelor in urban and regional planning from Texas State University and a master's in historic preservation from the University of Pennsylvania. Johnson Planning and Preservation focuses on design guidelines, form-based and hybrid codes, and specialized educational programs for boards, commissions, and elected officials. So there are 6 entrance corridor overlays within Smithfield. North Church Street, Business Route 10, West Main Street, US Route 258, Upper South Church Street, Lower South Church Street, Benz Church Boulevard, Route 10 Bypass, and Battery Park Road. Pictured here on the map. So what is the purpose of the ECO guidelines? They encourage and better articulate positive visual experiences, provide for the continued safe and efficient uses along the corridor, maintain natural beauty and scenic, cultural, and historical character of these corridors, particularly view sheds, vistas, and visual continuity, protect existing vegetation and wildlife, discourage indiscriminate clearing, excessive grading, and clear cutting, minimize cut and fill operations by placing emphasis on the retention of natural topography, and minimize interactions and individual site access. So changes in the new eco-design guidelines, pretty similar to the historic district guidelines. These were completed at the same time, the original ones in 2006, and these are an update in 2025. So new organization, new images, and additional environmental considerations within the guidelines. The new design guidelines are organized components, which each have their own goals. The relationship between the components and their goals is illustrated by the matrix in the guidelines. Users can also understand the purpose of each component by reading the goals in each chapter. These are screenshots from her design guidelines. Updated images. Both Meredith and I came out here on a couple of site visits and took photos around town. She took a lot of the entrance corridors, and I took a lot within here in the historic district. The updated images are aligned with the guidelines and show preferred interpretations. Like I said, all images are from the Smithfield's entrance corridors. The captions describe the application of guidance as it applies to the example pictures. So new in the eco-design guidelines are environmental considerations, updated language for climate resilient development, including more specific planting guidance and dark sky conscious lighting, and specific planting guidance to promote and protect Smithfield's ecology. And I believe that is the end of her slides.
Okay, any questions? Tammy, you have any comments on this?
Again, thank you. We just had minor staff comments dealing with spacing issues and a couple word choices, so we do recommend that if it is approved, it's conditioned on staff comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to, it's a public hearing, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Riddick?
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to open the public hearing. At this time, anyone like to speak about this? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Virginia Smith, 207 James Street, and I'm on the Planning Commission, and we did review this in much greater detail. And of course, we did rely on staff to help us with this because it's very wordy. But the main things that were updated were the photographs and some language and some new definitions for items that should have been been brought to mind. So while I can't speak to you in detail on this, I just want to let you know that we did spend a lot of time on it.
I have a question, Ms. Smith. The details that she said are left out, just comments and stuff, do you know what they are concerning or?
It was
Minor?
wording. It was wording.
Okay.
Yeah. Truly, that's about what it was. And as I said, the staff was very, very helpful. It's a lot of words to go over. It's a lot of the guidelines, you know, the lighting and the undercutting of the topography, making sure that, and the purpose of it is to make it look as good as possible when you come into town. And so I think that's what we're trying to accomplish. There are some areas that are very dated in town, but as they get updated, they'll need to follow these guidelines.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Smith since she was there? I appreciate you coming up and speaking about that.
And I could have done so on the historic district as well. It's a lot of stuff for you all to read and have at it, you know, have a good time with it. But part of the Planning Commission's review is to do a lot of the legwork for you so that unless it's burning questions that you have, for you to not have to spend your time going page by page, word by word.
Mr. Harris, you have a question?
No, not a question, but a comment that's very similar to what Darren said earlier. I would like to see this pushed back for 30 days as well for the same reason. And Gigi, to your point, if we don't read it, then we can't answer the question from the person on the street. So
And you've got to familiarize yourself
Right.
with these things.
I think both presentations were beautiful and very helpful.
Yeah, very, very nicely done.
But we're going to need some time to
Sure,
take a look.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm gonna agree with Bill on this, and I did read through most of, I mean, some of it was a little quick, but I did read through both of the documents, and it is, thank you for appreciate your presentation. But yes, I would like to, extra 30 days just so we have a little bit more time to digest it all.
Does anyone else from the public have any comments on this? Yes, ma'am.
Leah Walker at 303 Red Point Drive. And just a question, and maybe you all have the answer, I'll defer to you. Was there, for the overlay, for the entrance corridor, were there priority areas identified? I know the plans, but were there areas identified that were along those particular corridors that the design team felt were a higher priority than others? In other words, that were a far cry away from the standards that you'd want as an entrance corridor? And the reason I ask, we worked on the countywide bike plan, and there were certain priorities, you know, as far as so for example, the South Church Street, to finish getting into town, was there a priority list given of areas that needed particular improvement or attention? And that's all.
So just to elaborate on that, the corridors were broken down with a SWOT analysis, so opportunities and threats were identified for each of the corridors. They also incorporated the comprehensive plan images for that South Church Street corridor with that visual image of the more walkability along that South Church Street corridor. So although we didn't prioritize, we did identify that the corridors are different.
Any other questions?
I have a
Tammy?
question, Tammy. Is that information I didn't notice this, but in the report?
It's
that
in the
says-
guidelines.
Okay.
It's towards the end when we address the corridors.
Okay, the kind of the threats to each one. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Any more comments from the public? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Looks like we have a possibility of a motion. Mr. Harris?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that we postpone voting on this for 30 days to give council the opportunity to read and research.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Further discussion? And call for the vote, please.
Councilwoman Butler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Biebermeyer?
Yes.
Councilman Brooks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Yes.
Councilman Cutler?
Yes.
Councilman Bowman?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See, we have the approval of summary minutes.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I've reviewed the summary minutes from your December meeting and find them to be in order and recommend they be approved as presented.
We have a motion?
So move.
Second.
And a second.
Who was the second?
Mr. Harris. Call for the question?
Vice Mayor Harris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Butler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Biebermeyer?
Yes.
Councilman Cutler?
Yes.
Councilman Brooks?
Yes.
Councilman Bowman?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
We have one here that I didn't have on my other agenda, which is the final invoice. Is that still on there, Michael?
Yes, sir.
From Athens Building?
Yes, sir. Since the committee meetings, we have received the final invoices for the work that was done on the concession building at Luter Sports Complex from Athens Building, and these will final out that project as the construction has been completed.
Does anyone have any questions about this final invoice to Michael?
My only question is, has staff inspected to
Yes,
make
ma'am.
sure that everything has been completed?
Yes, ma'am, and we created a punch list probably a month ago that has been addressed.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Not, do we have a motion to approve this final invoice?
So moved.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Call for the question, please.
Mayor Smith,
Aye.
Councilwoman Biebermeyer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Yes.
Councilman Cutler,
Yes.
Councilman Brooks,
Yes.
Councilwoman Butler,
Yes.
Councilman Bowman.
Yes.
Okay, motion approves. New business. We have a motion to award a contract for mechanical and electrical utility services. Edward Hyde, can you speak on that, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Town of Smithfield requested proposals for contractors to provide mechanical, electrical, and utility services under a 3-year contract. The scope of work includes replacing valves, pumps, piping associated with sewer systems, troubleshooting SCADA systems at the water treatment plant, rebuilding pump station, and calibrating instrumentation. We received 2 proposals from local companies, and we recommend awarding the contract to Virginia Control and Electrical Services. They provided a significantly lower cost, and they currently hold the contract and do a good job.
Any questions pertaining to that? You satisfied with the work that, on the qualifications and so forth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question. Was there any change to the amount of the contract? I assume it's budgeted, but there's no value on the memo.
It's not a value, there's unit costs on the prices. I believe the prices have increased since the last time they held the contract, but.
Right, it's not a total dollar amount. We bid it out based off of, pricing, and so as work comes in, we already know what the pricing will be. So the total cost for the year will be determined based off of what we have to have done each year.
Do we budget for it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How much do we budget for it?
I'd have to go look in the budget to tell you the exact, because they do work across departments, and so I'd have to go add them all together.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Rick, I see this is a motion. Is this already been done by his report? And we just need to second that? Or do
There
we
would need to be a motion, well, someone needs to make a motion.
Okay.
And a second, and then you can take action to award the contract.
All right. We need a motion to approve the contract for the mechanical services.
I'd like to make a motion to award the contract for mechanical and electrical utility services as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeff Brooks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Biebermeyer. Any questions, concerns? Call for the question?
Vice Mayor Harris,
Yes.
Councilman Brooks,
Yes.
Councilwoman Butler,
Yes.
Councilwoman Biebermeyer,
Yes.
Councilman Cutler,
Yes.
Councilman Bowman,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Next is B, the appointment of a town council representative to the planning commission. And I'm assuming that is my job, is that correct?
That's the only job that the mayor has, is you have, the only thing that makes you different is you get to run the meetings and you get to make appointments.
Right. Okay. At this time, I'd like to appoint Darren Cutler to represent us on planning commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the confidence that you have from me for that role.
Okay, we don't need a vote on that, do we? Okay, thank you. Discussion item, we have Bridges Quarry. Tammy, you're back up again.
Yes, thank you, sir. Town staff have received a conditional rezoning request from Isle of Wight County. This is for approximately 17.5 acres of TPIN 3201009. This is the parcel that abuts the parcel that is proposed to be the Wawa on the corner of Turner and Bench Church. The proposed rezoning would be general commercial. This is to facilitate storage facility, medical office, retail sales, general office, and restaurant. According to the conceptual plan, there will be 6 parcels. This will include a 2-story medical office building, a 3-story climate-controlled storage center. It will be accessed from the connector road off the proposed roundabout and full access intersection off Ben's Church Boulevard. According to the project narrative, this rezoning request is in alignment with the current Newport DSD future land use map, which identified this property as business and employment. This application was provided to the town for any additional comments, which are due January 20th. Staff do suggest a robust discussion and consensus on comments. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions to Tammy about further information on this?
Tammy, just to be clear, particularly for folks in the audience, all of this property is inside the county, not the town.
That is correct.
Yes, sir. We have a, for lack of a better term, a gentleman's agreement between the two entities that when we receive applications that are adjacent to our boundaries, we'll share them with each other just for comment purposes so they can get input from us and we can get input from them.
Any other questions?
I will add that I did go through the application package. I have about 6 or 7 comments on the environmental site assessment. It also indicated that the property would be serviced by the Smithfield Fire Department, and so I did reach out to them for additional comments on this application as well.
Any other questions for Tammy? Ms. Beaver?
I actually read through all 940 pages of it. I mean, sans some of the graphs and all that. A lot of it is that parcel there, but it also relates to, there are a lot of traffic studies in there as well that relate to Sweetgrass and even different intersections off of Church Street and all that. Just curious how, I mean, it's helpful to have all that information, but is that just considered background information? Why is that all in there?
This particular project, it was unique in the sense that there was multiple developments within the town and the county happening at the same time. The county required a master TIA. This would be to ensure that no one development was left having to install all of the traffic improvements. Instead, they all worked together to create one larger, much larger TIA for that area.
Okay. And I did notice too, it looked like the traffic study was done 2017, 2018, is that right? Or it's just been updated since then, or how? I mean, it was hard to keep track of all the different dates in there, but.
We've been working on that master TIA for many years,
Okay.
but it wasn't completed that long ago.
Okay, so, and I guess that's my other question is how long is a traffic study good for? I mean, say one was done 5 years ago, as long as it took in all the information that's currently known. I mean, you know, I know a lot of these developments have been in the works for many years, but how long is the traffic study assuming that it's valid, basically?
So in this particular instance, we are relying on VDOT because they are VDOT roads. If, for example, with the DMV, we did require a TIA because there was future development that had been approved, and so we wanted to make sure that when the DMV came, they came with an updated TIA as well that accounted for the traffic, specifically Mallory, that had been approved.
Okay.
So this was part of what turned into the roundabout Turner Drive, just because that master transportation improvement analysis. So that's part of it, is why it's so complex, is because they were part of that. And to your other question is, if conditions changed, then they would be required to update it. I mean, we do that occasionally where they will update their portion of an impact study because of conditions that have changed outside of their control.
I do have one, well, I have a bunch of notes here, but let's see if I wrote this one down. Somewhere in there it referred to, page 84, I think, is where it is. It says water provided by City of Smithfield. So first of all, many issues wrong with that, but I'm assuming, yeah. Right.
Isle of Wight will provide that with water and
Right.
sewer.
Okay, all right, just
Those are
checking.
a majority of my comments as well,
Okay.
is addressing what will be provided by Isle of Wight County and the town of Smithfield.
Okay. Um, And it appears that there's going to be there's a light at Turner, and there will also be a light with this development that's opposite from Sweetgrass. Is that clear?
It is my understanding that the light was part of Sweetgrass' application.
Okay.
So this particular application is proposing that full access off of Ben's Church.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, I'll let
Any
anybody
other
else ask
questions
questions.
by council? If not, since this is just a discussion item.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Tammy,
Sorry.
at this point, no costs to the town associated with this particular project.
No, this is just a courtesy review.
Thank you.
And if there's no other questions, it's just a discussion item, so a vote's not required, isn't that correct? Okay, thank you, Tammy.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes,
I'm sorry
ma'am.
about that. Are there any plans, I didn't know, for any pedestrian crossing in that area, or even from Turner?
Not that I'm
Because of the
aware
hi- I'm
of.
just thinking because of the high school. Okay. Okay.
And what I would add too is, as Tammy mentioned, we have until the 20th to submit comments. So if you come up with anything or questions between now and then,
Okay.
feel free to send them on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Tammy. Moving along, old business. Anyone have anything on old business they'd like to bring up?
Mr. Mayor, you may remember, past meeting, I brought up and advocated for the consideration by town council in the budget process of relieving the Smithfield Recreation Association of their debt for their fields they have. And although some of the new members on council may have been in the audience, they were not sitting here in the body politic proper. So what I'd like to do, since it has drawn some attentions in the media today or whatever, is I would like to have and ask that or you direct, that the town manager provide us a overview of the history, what's going on, what we've been involved in. I know Ms. Novak, she provided or did provide a number of different items, and since then I've understood that there may be some other developments as far as the actual monetary amount or consideration to be looked at. But I just want the townsfolk to know that, you know, we as a town council have for many, many years provided philanthropic assistance to different organizations. And as a matter of equity, equality, and things like that, I want to make sure that should we go down this road, that a thorough analysis is done from a comparative analysis of what we've done. I do understand there were some concerns and have been concerns. Vice Mayor Butler indicated, or Councilwoman Butler indicated, that she had some concerns at the last meeting about equity and things like that. But I've gone back and looked at it a little bit closer as far as the allocation of what I'm asking to be provided, and that I would ask to be included in the budget to assist this organization. If you read today's article, I advocated for the utilization of the interest at no cost whatsoever, by the way, to the town of Smithfield, other than the interest that was provided on the amount that Mr. Luter had provided to the town that we ultimately decided not to take. So it's not a negative or not a delta as far as our budget is concerned. But in looking at the grand scheme of things, I just want to make sure that Mr. Stallings can provide to us costs that have been associated with X organization, Y organization, and things like that, so that specifically the new members can be totally informed of when the budget comes up. And I ask that it be included as a line item in the budget, that it's there and it's out there in full view. But again, I would not have gone out on a limb and advocated for this had I not believed that it was the right thing to do. In delving into it a little bit further since the meeting, I still believe it is the right thing to do. And will ultimately be asking for the council's support in this matter. Again, I don't think it's a deviation from anything that we've done before. I think it provides basically a service, and more than just a service, a benefit to our youth, as we were discussing earlier today about our youth going to school and things that they were doing and how they ended up here in Smithfield and their quality of life. So I would ask you, not to get overly wordy, is to direct Mr. Stallings and Ms. Novak to provide a report to the council of the big picture as far as this is concerned, as far as the dollars are concerned, what we spend on other operations, what has been spent on other operations, what concerns, and then what concerns council may have ultimately prior to any vote on this matter. So I would respectfully request that.
All right, thank you. Speaking of that, when you did say something about that last meeting we had, I did reach out to Michael, and he gave me a little snapshot of what he could come up with at that time. It was late in the afternoon, but he did get back with me, and I think that it further delving into it. And if you speak to, your staff members that are affiliated with some of that, the contracts or whatever it may be, and actual dollar amounts that you could present, I think that'd be very helpful. And I do agree we need to look at this and then bring it back to council. Any other comments about
I'd like
that?
some clarification, Mike. You said you had a conversation with Michael to provide you with some figures.
Just a snapshot, that's correct.
And what kind of figures are you looking for?
What I want to look at is how much they were owed, how much the contract was for,
Oh, okay.
how much they owed, how much they paid in, what they were promised and may have gotten more of or less of. So I know Amy's gonna probably have to weigh in on some of that, especially with the contract, but you can get with her on that.
I do have one question. Why is one called a lease agreement and the other one called a memorandum of understanding?
A lot of that's going to have to do with the timing of the agreements. The
Okay.
MOU with SRA was put in place while the facility was being constructed. And so they were a partner during the development and construction of the project. The lease agreement with Smithfield Packers Youth Sport was because the facility had already been constructed and they were leasing a portion of the facility from us. So that would be the only explanation I can come up with, and that would make sense because the facility was existing, so they were leasing a portion of it from us.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that the order is reversed. I think it's a lease agreement with SRA
Okay.
and a memorandum of understanding for Smithfield Packers Youth Sport.
And that may be the case, but
Ms. Butler, I'd have to look at them, and I can't remember. I'll have to go back.
I'd like to know.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we can include that in his
effect-
report.
we can do an evaluation of the agreements and, all of that at the same time.
Okay.
We
Thank
can
you
do
for
that.
that, Michael. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I would like to just being new here, I'd like to kind of know the history of how that even got started, how it got started with, I know, with Beal Park and with all that, if you could just
We can do
Yes,
that.
ma'am. That's why I've actually asked for this versus just coming out and say, I'd like to make a motion that we do this or that and whatever, so. Yeah.
I have a comment as well. I think it's a great initiative to invest these funds in our youth, and the right thing to do. As you said, it's no expense to the budget. But I think maybe expanding the scope a little bit might be useful for Parks and Rec to say, across the spectrum of our youth organizations, where can we make a difference with some of these funds, across the whole spectrum.
Yeah, because after all, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a quality recreational program that serves the needs, the wants, the desires of those that play football, those that play soccer, those whatever goes completely across the spectrum of recreational program in the town of Smithfield.
Yes, sir. I think we're on the same page, sir.
Okay. Appreciate that, Michael. Can you work on that for us?
Yes, sir. Mayor, I do have something.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to create a subcommittee to thoroughly vet the farmers market and to make recommendation on it. It's an extremely valuable asset, and I believe it needs the proper attention so that we end up with a terrific product for our vendors, but more importantly, our citizens and taxpayers. Obviously, location and funding will be the major focus, and I think a group of people can collectively produce the best solution. With that said, if the recommendations followed, I don't see why Mary Ellen Biebermeyer, Darren Cutler, and Bill Harris could serve on that subcommittee. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to create that subcommittee.
Okay, we have a motion for a subcommittee. Do we have a second?
Second.
You don't make a motion to create a subcommittee. You can create a subcommittee and then you can make appointments.
Okay.
It's
So he can
essentially a
reword-
suggestion from a council
Sure.
member to do that, and you have the authority to create that committee.
So we don't need a motion then?
I think he can direct the subcommittee and appoint who he wants, correct?
You can.
Okay, just need to report back to you.
But it's a ad hoc committee to the full council, because
Right.
you have standing committees that you still have, and I'm sure you just have become aware of that, Mr. Smith, but you have to populate the committees and name chairmen for all the 6 standing subcommittees, excuse me, standing committees, and then.
Right, then the subcommittees also.
So you could, you probably should just do this all comprehensively and come back with your recommendations for the committee. I mean, you don't have to do that right now.
Okay, very good. At least we got a guideline. Or any other old business?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I do have some old business to address. It seems that is the nature of the way we conduct town business, that occasionally there will be necessarily matters that are tabled or postponed because they need further investigation or are not as pressing as other issues that may have come up. During the last year, there were several important issues under consideration by council that were tabled for future action, and it is my hope that we can revisit these issues sooner than later. Lee, by the way, one of those is the idea of how we can better address affordable housing. If the issue before us was important enough to consider originally, it is certainly incumbent upon us to address these matters of old business in a timely and responsible manner. In some cases, delaying final action leaves too much up in the air, and occasionally leaves certain citizens unsure as how to proceed. Tonight, I draw specific attention to the matter of the proposed sale of the town-owned property, generally referred to as the Times Building in Times Square on Main Street at 228 Main. As most of you will remember, the town offered this property for sale through an RFP that specified the submission of closed bids by a specific deadline. After the deadline had passed, Town Council had a public hearing for citizens to express their concerns about the impending sale of that property. A number of citizens came forward, and virtually all who spoke that evening recommended that council step back and reevaluate the entire process surrounding the original RFP and to look again at the impact of selling that property might have on the life of downtown Smithfield. Many speakers spoke eloquently of the history of the building and its association with a small town newspaper. Others raised questions about how the public would be able to use the space and the stage in particular. Council members' responses did little to calm the concerns of the many citizens. References were made to easements, coordinated schedules, and maybe the repurposing of sidewalks, but no one seemed to offer guarantees as to how everything might proceed to the satisfaction of the citizens. Council recognized this and decided to table the final decision on the sale until they could reconsider the many issues raised by the citizens. All of these concerns are valid, and we need to take a look at all of these things and to listen to what the citizens had to say. However, for me, the most significant issue surrounding the potential sale of this property under the existing RFP is that the Town Council was positioning itself to accept a bid well below market value of the property. As stewards of the people's money, I believe it is the duty of the Town Council to exercise great care in the managing of the people's money and I do not believe that there is any justification for selling this piece of town-owned property or any other piece of town-owned property below market value. In my view, the proper course of action now is for us to withdraw the original RFP and regroup on this most important matter. Doing so will allow Town Council to revisit the possibility of selling that property, and will also allow Council to do a more exact and specific manner in regards to public use. Canceling the existing RFP also will allow for the reevaluation of market value and allow for a more proper pricing of the property if Town Council decides to sell in the future. Accordingly, Mr. Mayor, I now move that Town Council direct the Town Manager to vacate the existing RFP for the sale of the Times Building in Times Square as provided for in the original language of the original RFP, and to inform all involved parties that the property is no longer for sale at this time.
Second.
We have a motion. And we have a second.
I second it.
He seconded it.
He seconded it.
It was, his was
Mr.
the motion,
Cutler,
his was the
Harris
second.
and Cutler. Harris made the motion, Cutler.
Correct.
You have that, Ms. Clark? Thank you. Any discussion, further discussion about this matter?
I concur with Bill. After the fact, there was some misunderstanding on my behalf on what was being sold and if or what was being retained by the town. We had a conversation about us having, I don't know what the terminology would be, but control of the stage area, and in our discussion, I was under the impression that the town would be retaining that portion of the land, and that's not so. And in the closed session, I asked, because I asked that question, and I asked, why didn't someone correct me or let me know exactly what was happening? But our motion also was not only the highest price, it was also the highest price and best use of the property. So maybe that's something that we need to consider when we go back to the drawing board. But there was definitely some confusion on my behalf, and I did make a statement to one of my peers on town council. Had I had a different understanding of it, I don't know if I would have voted for that transaction.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Anyone else have any comments about that? If not, call for the question.
Councilman Brooks?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beavermeyer?
Yes.
Councilman Cutler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Butler?
Yes.
Councilman Bowman?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Any other business comes before town council tonight?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Another old business item, and probably get to it in your assignments of committees, but you had made a motion several months back, and Mr. Bowman, as Mayor Bowman at the time, had created a committee to come up with guidance. You made a motion for no public-private partnership, and so I would like to see that committee. You were on that committee. Two members who have vacated their seats were on that committee. So I would like to ask you to revive that committee so we can put those guidelines in place to prevent public-private partnership in the town of Smithfield. I would recommend members or chairpersons from finance, public buildings and welfare, and planning to be on that committee at a minimum.
Anyone have any comments about it?
I got a question, Darren. Are you totally against private-public partnerships, or are you more interested in creating a guideline to entertain consideration of a situation like that?
I think when it was discussed previously, there was some lack of clarity that led to the formation of the committee. Discussions of the differences between a town investing in property or use of property with a private entity, which I would never say never, but I generally do not support, as opposed to an incentive-based type of operation where, say, a business was moving to Smithfield or we wanted to incentivize small local business or something of that nature, where it wasn't money out of the taxpayer's pocket to create such an incentive, but rather a benefit in the future tax scenario of such a business. So I think the guidelines would clarify those types of things, and if the council so chose, then it would be against public-private partnership as I've described it.
Because I don't think that we've made a decision in the past on public-private partnerships. I don't think that we've been in a transaction like that. Have we, Bill?
I mean, it was spoken about at length in the Grange discussion, I think, as I recall.
We have not entered into a public-private partnership with the Grange.
I agree.
And the only commitment that we made initially was the 1.4 million for the farmers market, and that is something that Mayor Smith, I'm sorry, Mike.
That's all right.
Mayor Smith will be appointing a committee to do further research on the farmers market, and I guess once that's done, if we move forward with it, then that determination will be made then. But we haven't made any type of public-private partnership with any developer at the Grange.
I agree with you, Ms. Butler, and I think that writing some guidelines could assist with that if the council wanted to write guidelines such that they would entertain that, or write guidelines that they would not entertain that. Regardless, there is a empty committee that was created that took no action and is old business as far as I can tell.
I would also recommend that discussion on public-private partnership for localities also came up at the VML conference this past October. So I also think that with outside conferences or outside training, it may be advantageous to us to also listen to what a non-biased party has to also say to discuss the advantages or the disadvantages.
Yeah, I would certainly, and I'm sure the rest of the council would be open to that as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Butler. If not,
Mr. Mayor, yes, I'd like
yes, okay.
to weigh in. I was actually in the audience at the time when that came up, and the discussion around the table was interesting, sort of along the lines that Valerie just suggested. Mr. Collins made the very good point to make sure that in those discussions there was a clear delineation between incentive and entering into a spending of the citizens' money to benefit a private development. Bringing in experts from the outside is an excellent idea. Darren's suggestion is that we return to one of these issues of old business, clean it up, and finish it up. So I would be very much in favor of doing that.
Okay, consensus is to reform the committee.
Just one other
Yes,
comment. To Valerie's point, Madam Mayor Butler, Vice Mayor Butler, Councilman Butler's point, I think we have to be very careful as we go down the road as to what we're making sure that we try to achieve. Obviously, in state government, the governor has significant flexibility as far as funding is concerned to draw businesses that provide, at the end of the day, a benefit to the locality. If they don't, like for example, X number of jobs, and if you don't provide X number of jobs, you have to pay the money back. You know, it's one of those incentive type programs. But as we go into this assignment, I want to make sure that we don't have a predetermined direction or a predetermined issue that we're trying to address, because if that's the case, that's not particularly fair or probably lawful as far as due process and different things like that are concerned. But back to Councilman Cutler's point, if we go in there and look at it from a global perspective, not from the grains perspective or something that might end up on the other end of town or anything that's not predisposed. I think it's a good idea, because we do need to get to the point where we as a council can provide some assurance to our citizens that we're going to be expending their dollars in a fair manner. One of the things that did concern me a little bit, and that was, you know, the going back to the money that was provided by Mr. Luder. I think all of a sudden it got spun into a scenario where this is going to cost the taxpayers money. This is going to cost, well, there was some discussion about whether it's a wall, whether it's a streetscape, whether it's an improvement on the west side of town, whatever you want to call it. And at the end of the day, there was no, any more than the interest that we were provided, there was no specific directive that said, you have to spend X number of dollars within X amount of time, which is why I asked the treasurer, how much money did we have the availability to do that? And the answer was yes, we did at the time. And I'm still somewhat hung up on the fact that, to Mr. Brooks's point, he made the analogy about a bicycle. Well, if somebody's going to give you a bicycle, they don't tell you it's going to cost 50 cents on the dollar. Well, it's still 50 cents on the dollar. It was 50 cents on the dollar. But to my point, and I'll just bring it back around, I think we really need to be global, have our eyes wide open as we go down the road and pursue this committee. And it will be good, and it'll be a learning process, and I think it'll get us all on the same sheet of music. And, you know, anytime you can get together, as we talked earlier, it's a good thing, and it'll work out. So
Yeah,
that's just my comment.
It's been a learning process, and I think Mr. Cutler's idea of, you know, being all-encompassing instead of just, like you said, picking out one project and pick on that, that's not the case, and I don't see that happening. So earlier on, it could have been that way. So we've made decisions now to go in another direction, which I think is very good, and it gets us all involved in that. So.
Sure.
And once, if I may, once the policy is established with a global view, that eliminates any specific attacks in the future.
Absolutely.
So if we do come in with a general policy, said that this is the approach that the citizens of the town of Smithfield and its leadership and the town council want to do, you know, that.
Model policy.
Model policy.
Yep. Good deal. Thank you.
Any other concerns or questions before we close tonight?
I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate you on your first meeting. You did
Thank
great.
you.
Not as a critic, but yeah, it was a pleasure working with you. It's going to be a pleasure working with you, as we had those discussions prior to you taking office. I think we've got a good thing going here, and it's going to be a good thing.
I do too. I
Anybody
think
needs anything or whatever, I've just to let you know that I'm going to continue to dedicate myself to, just like everybody else is, to the service of the town of Smithfield, as I have for the last 40-some years, along with the rest of us folks. So anyway, but again, did a great job. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. With that being said, adjourn the meeting.
Remember, photos are going to be taken before y'all leave.